Hello, survivor, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll be discussing a topic that is extremely important, and that is how to identify red flags after dating a narcissist. This is a topic that is extremely close to my heart because many people, myself included, have experienced the really toxic impact of a narcissistic relationship. Narcissism is often defined by that inflated sense of self-importance, the lack of empathy, and the constant need for admiration. Those are pretty much three of the top signs. Narcissistic traits can really range from overt behaviors like arrogance and that overinflated sense of self-importance, or it can be more covert, like, when they're passive aggressive. So I want to talk about recognizing some red flags after you've dealt with a narcissist, but you decide that you're ready to try again and get back out there and begin dating. So let's first talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting is an attempt that narcissists make to distort their reality, making you question your perceptions and memories. They might deny things that they said or that they did. Oh, you didn't hear that right. That's not what I said. I told you I didn't like that. And it leaves you doubting yourself. What ends up happening as a result of gaslighting is you stop trusting yourself and your own ideas about reality, and you end up running to where you think the answers are, which is, of course, the narcissist. Another red flag, of course, that we have to be on the lookout for is emotional manipulation. They use guilt, shame, fear, and other things in order to manipulate your emotions. A lot of it is also things like blame shifting, where they make you feel responsible for what they've done. Well, yeah, I yelled, but you made me mad. Well, yes, I did this, but you did that. Narcissists have a very good way of being able to dodge any kind of accountability or responsibility, along with their manipulation. I think it's a good time here to talk about what myself and many others really agree and believe to be the hallmark of narcissism, and that is their lack of empathy. It's a huge red flag when somebody doesn't have empathy. It is important to remember that we are all human, and there are all days that we have where none of us have empathy. Remember, when it comes to spotting toxicity and narcissism, you need a pattern of these behaviors. You need these behaviors to be happening constantly. And like I say, the lack of empathy is a major one. They can't understand what you're going through. They can't understand why things bother you. They are emotionally distant or emotionally immature. Like I say, when you're going through something, they will dismiss it or minimize you or somehow flip it until before you know it, you're not doing anything but talking about them. Love bombing is also something. This happens very early in relationships, and it's not always romantic relationships. All narcissists love bomb. Sometimes it's just called idealization, but they all do. In the beginning, narcissists often, overwhelm and bombard you with affection and attention. Some of them even do wild, grand gestures, giving gifts, and they are really wonderful at creating the illusion of a perfect relationship. They'll also do things like future faking, where even if things aren't perfect right now, you will learn and be conditioned to learn that if you just stick with them, everything will be perfect at a later date. Let's also talk about a constant need for validation. These are the most insecure little people that you will ever meet, which is kind of a red flag there in and of itself. But narcissists are seeking constant praise and compliments and admiration. The thing about it is that it's never enough. And before you know it, you find yourself constantly having to reassure them. Even when they've done something wrong, you still have to remind them that they're great and that they're wonderful. And it gets extremely exhausting. Another red flag is, of course, the devaluing and the subsequent discard. But really, the devaluing is a good sign to know that, this is bad and I should probably get out of here. One minute you're the king or the queen, respectively, and the next they are criticizing you or giving you that cold shoulder and just ignoring you completely. They're going to run hot and cold. They will do things like ghost you. They will be incredibly harsh and critiquing and criticizing. And once more, everybody has a bad day. Devaluing once you hit that phase with a narcissist, it is something that typically doesn't let up. It gets worse and gets worse over time. Another big thing to look out for is when somebody is looking to isolate you. The whole reason why a narcissist needs to isolate you from friends or family links a little bit to the gaslighting that I talked about here a moment ago. It makes you turn to the narcissist for, well, what is the truth? What is reality? What is correct? So what a narcissist does to further isolate is they begin to sow those seeds of doubt into you. Well, your mom doesn't really care about you. Well, your brother, blah, 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 blah. And they start to feed you these narratives that your friends, your family, your what have you, don't really care about you, or they don't like you. They don't have your best interest at heart. And before you know it, you might begin to shut down these other relationships. And now you are completely dependent on the narcissist. Blame shifting, I kind of want to give it its own point here, although I have already, mentioned it briefly. They're not going to take responsibility. They're not going to take accountability. Really be on the lookout for people when they seem to have this narrative of, well, yeah, that happened, but, and nothing ever seems to be their fault. They can't just be the adult, chalk it up and say, damn, yeah, that was me, and there's nothing else I can do about it. Self-centered conversations, monologuing, huge red flag. When they're dominating the conversation, or you can't share anything about you because it flips back onto them if you try to talk about your feelings or experiences, for example. They just redirect the conversation right back onto them, and it feels extremely one-sided. Really pay attention to the way that you're thinking and the way that you're feeling. Are you having these ideas that everything just feels very one-sided? Also, we have to talk about how they breach your boundaries. They're going to disregard, minimize, and basically step right over your boundaries and push you to do things that you are uncomfortable doing. A narcissist strongly desires control in the relationship. So they're going to disrespect your space. They're going to disrespect you emotionally and hope that they can steamroll you and get that power as soon as possible. Your boundaries need to be firm before you get back out into the dating world. Boundaries need to be in place. What are the consequences when someone breaks a boundary? What are your standards? What are your expectations? And those are all things that, as I talk a little bit more about dating after dealing with someone narcissistic, I'm going to dive into. And you can get all the tools that you need from some of these future videos. But it's really, really important to be able to recognize these red flags as quickly as possible. But remember, we are looking for a pattern. Just because somebody has a bad day, well, everybody does. But these red flags need to be seen for your emotional well-being, because the longer you stay with the narc, as you already know, it leads to emotional exhaustion. You might lose your self-worth, your self-doubt. Recognizing the red flags also allow you to, again, break free as early as possible. It's not that we're never going to find another person like this again, but if we can find them and get rid of them quicker, it's a lot easier. Setting boundaries is vital, seeking support, and learning how to walk away. Again, all things that I'm going to talk about a little bit deeper in future videos to come. But you deserve a relationship, survivor, that is healthy, supportive, and a huge thing to look for is reciprocal. Are you getting from it what you're putting into it? And don't be afraid to walk away if these red flags are present. It doesn't all necessarily point towards narcissism, but what it does point to is emotional immaturity, aggressiveness, perhaps mental illness, and toxicity. Things that you do not have to put up with in your life if you don't want to. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it empowers you to trust your instincts and prioritize your mental and emotional health. As always, have a great day, survivor, and take care of yourself.